Hello and welcome to a rundown of the AK integrated foil drive mast. Now, this has been on the drawing board for some time now, and finally the production mast is here, not before a few little hiccups on the way, but very happy with how this has turned out. Now, when people come to me and quiz me about integrated masts, their assumptions mostly centre around an increased efficiency and thus battery life. And while there is a grain of truth in that, it's not what you would think. It does boil down to efficiency, the gains of an integrated mast, but it's in a different way. Now, when Paul invented Foildrive and gave us the knife and fork to nature's all-you-can-eat buffet, he gave us a caveat. We had to strap a giant sausage onto our mast, and that sausage has two drawbacks. One, it creates drag. Whenever it hits in free flight, you get drag. That affects your stance, and that in turn causes you to hesitate, come off your line, and it's why pure prone foiling is much purer, really, much less interaction when you're actually on the wave. These pod strikes are annoying. So how do we get around it? Well, we started winkling the pods from the 20 centimetre standard further and further up the mast, so we had more free flight area, if you will, below. And that had a secondary advantage, actually, because as you move it further up, you get less leverage on the board, so your front foot doesn't load up under power, and that was welcome. But if you run your pod very close to the board, and a lot of you'll know this, you get a lot of cavitation, and that cavitation causes surging. It causes loss of battery life because you keep on having to slow and speed up and slow and speed up. There's no continuity to the drive. It's really annoying. And in rough chop, it can also be terminal. You know, I've had days when it's almost impossible to use with it using a 10 or a 15 centimetre cable. Now, first of all, when you'll get on an integrated mast, the first thing that you'll notice is that the motor stops cavitating. Now, this mast is set at 17.5 centimetres from the top of the mast head, which is a really sweet spot. It massively reduces your front foot load under drive, which any slammed pod does, but no cavitation. That's the first thing you'll notice. The air just doesn't get sucked down this trailing edge, flows over. The pressure difference between the two is separated. You don't get this link between the two, which is causing the motor to spin up over RPM. So that's one major advantage. But the second thing that you'll come to realise is that when you're in free flight, and you do catch the motor, and every good rider is going to catch their pod. There's just no way around it. You can't get a hard bank turn. Keep your foil buried deep enough to not cavitate out and keep the pod free. Here's a clip of me taking a medium sort of turn here with the foil fairly well buried, and you'll see the water flow over the pod. Now, the difference between the integrated pod and the standard pod is drag. When I bury the integrated pod, I don't notice. It doesn't affect my trim or stance at all, really, or if it does, I've learned to deal with it in such a way that I just don't notice it anymore. The friction created by all the tape, that massive, great big sausage that you get from the stock system, is massively higher. And it's this that is the key to the integrated mast. Have a look at this clip here. Now, this is my friend in Ireland a few weeks ago. He's caught beauty here, and I'll give him his due. He's on a foil that he's never used before, borrowed from a friend, and he's just trying it out, burning this session, if you will, which seems sacrilege when you look at that wave. But look at him come down it, and you can see those big strips of white water behind him. That's a pod strike, and every time that happens, he's having to get on his back foot and sort his life out again and get his altitude resettled. And that is what you want to get rid of. Here's another shot of me taking a quick snap around a small wave here, and you can see the pod and the issue that I'm talking about. Now, these integrated pods, they really have far more efficiency in terms of drag when you strike them. You really just don't notice them, and that is the true value of the integrated foil drive mast. If you're a dedicated foil drive user this is a performance hack. The integrated mast makes a massive difference for this reason only. Now, the development of this mast has hit problems. Primary reason is that the design that has come from Foildrive necessitates the coring out of the middle of this pod, which my earlier iterations didn't, my homebrew hacks. Digging out the centre portion of the mast reduces a massive amount of structural cohesion, if you will. Flowing the carbon around the pod doesn't have the same structural strength as it does if you just run it straight through as the core of the mast. And it's taken a lot of head scratching, a lot of different layups and a lot of prototyping to make sure that this mast is now torsionally stiffer in terms of its twist that way and longitudinally stiffer in terms of its stiffness that way than the stock mast. It is. I've tried the earlier versions. They were wet noodles. This thing is stiffer than the stock mast. That is an important thing to realise, and don't assume that every mast is equal. Ask to see the numbers. You know, it's an easy thing to do. The masts need to be stiff, and these ones are. The AK mast comes in 82 centimetres. That's the sweet spot that everybody who uses shorter masts and the longer masts sort of settled on. It's pretty much standard in the industry now. AK as a brand, if you're not familiar with the AK side of things, they do two main foils for foil driving. I've got them here and I use them exclusively. They do a medium and a high aspect. The high aspect plasma, this is the 880, which is favoured by a lot of prone foilers simply because it's hugely efficient and very manoeuvrable actually for its span. It's very tolerant of tip out, it pumps beautifully and it's very, very quick. But if you're not a prone foiler and you're using it in waves that have a bit of punch, this is where my heart lies. It is the Tracer. Now the Tracer series is actually what I started to learn foil driving on. The 1300 was a beautiful, easy foil to learn to foil drive on. This is the 800, which has the most unbelievably fast ability to roll rail to rail, and its carving ability is just unmatched. I absolutely love this foil. Top speed as well. It's a phenomenal bit of kit. I've just spent a week on this in Ireland and absolutely belting. The new love of my life, this thing. The tail wings on these AKs come in an integrated fuselage like this, or you can get them in an alloy fuselage that has an adjustable stabilizer on it. I've got one up here somewhere. There's an adjustable stabilizer which the rear stab fixes on. So have a look at AK. They're not as well known as some of the brands out there, but they're very, very good. AK have been around since the beginning of kite surfing, to be honest, and their pedigree is really right up there. The mast connection, third generation foils with the fuselages all integrated into the front of the wing. They are absolutely on the money right now. Now the finishing quality of these masts is absolutely beautiful. It is a gorgeous thing to behold. And here you'll see me strip this mast down. They come with an integrated puck that you can take out, and here's the inside section of the mast here. Now this puck and the plug that comes on it fit onto any V2 foil drive motor, the one with the removable cables. It can be a standard one like this, or it can be the high power motor as well. On the bottom of the mast you'll see that it has a removable plate here. Now you don't need to remove this plate. Underneath here is the soldered joints of the cable between the two. But what you can do is just loosen these 4 screws a little bit, and by loosening the screws you can slide this cable backwards and forwards a bit, and that enables you to just sort of slot for your system exact tolerances of the plug from the foil drive into the actual mast. They come with the 2 holes on either side here which screw into the foil drive unit, that for those of us that use trench boards means that you can just undo your bolts, pull the whole unit out of the board, change your battery and plop it back in again. That's an essential thing in my book to have. So that's it. That's my scoop on the AK integrated mast. They're not especially expensive. I shouldn't be saying that really. Less is definitely more in this day and age. And compared to some of the prices that I've seen for this kind of stuff, these are really, really good value. So have a look at the AK range. I highly recommend them. I've been using them for some time now. They're absolutely bomb-proof, full confidence in these things, and the engineering behind them, the shaping and their practical use for real-world scenarios, absolutely brilliant. More and more of my friends are turning to them. So yeah, there you go. Any questions, please hit me up in the comments, and as always, I will do my best to answer.